I'd like to welcome everyone present and advise that the meeting will be recorded in accordance with the Council Policy GOV.017, order recording of council meetings to record meetings of council to assist in the preparation of the minutes and ensure a true and accurate account of debate and discussion of the meetings is available. Another announcement that we will be filming the meeting tonight and that the recording is for testing purposes, and if it's successful, it will be made available to the public. The second announcement would be acknowledgement of country, and I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Tomagina people, and to pay our respects to those that have passed before us, their history and their culture. We'll move over to attendance, and we have a full book and of councillors. Thank you for that. No apologies. Leave of absences nil. And the confirmation of the previous minutes. Would we have a mover and a seconder for those, please?
Move,
Yeah, I'll
Mr.
move,
Mayor.
Mayor.
Yep.
I moved first.
Right, Deputy Mayor Dunn
No, I did.
and Councillor Bramish seconded. At this stage, any corrections to those minutes that you've identified to be agreed to before taking a vote to adopt them? Are we all happy with how they were recorded? No one speaks. Yes. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. That was 2.1. Declarations of interest tonight. Are there any councillors with an agenda item of interest that they'd like to register? Neil, any staff with an agenda item that they'd like to identify? Neil? Okay, we move to item 4 on the agenda, and it's 4.1, the announcements by the Mayor, 4.2, the Mayor's communications, 4.3, the reports by delegates, and 4.4, notification of council workshops. And then I'd like to put all those, because they're not for any decision making, as one motion, and then we'll any questions after that. So could I have a motion for all those items under section 4 of the agenda, please?
I move, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Duniam?
Seconded, yep. Councillor House.
That's good. I won't confuse the voices. Okay, move Deputy Mayor Duniam, seconded Councillor House on all items on number 4. Before I put them, I'll ask for any debate. Is there any questions? I've no announcements by me, and my communications are there as 4.2. There's no delegate reports, and notification of the workshops, they're listed. And then over the page, we've got the upcoming indicative only, and then the councillor attendance record. Any queries or questions there, councillors?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? Carried unanimously. Response 5, we're item 5 now on the agenda, and 5.1, it's public question and statement time. The questions taken on notice from the previous meeting, there's a reply there, the question and responses. We move over to public questions received in writing, the 21st of April. There's one there, the GM without notice, next council meeting from the Australian Services Union. The GM's listed that, and a reply. Now we come to public questions without notice, not related to planning, and I believe we have a couple here, and the GM will deliver those for us.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 2 questions from Cody Hutchinson from Preelina Road, and I'll read them out. Question 1, will Council be providing the Preelina and or wider community with a report on the outcome from the Preelina Hall discussions at the April closed meeting? And will councillors be given a chance to justify their decision about the future of the Preelina Community Centre in an open meeting? And at which meeting will this occur? I wrote an objection to the sale of the Preelina Hall and sent it to council, and have yet to receive a formal reply giving me notice of the outcome. So I assume the outcome has yet to be finalised. When will I be informed?
Okay.
from us.
And Sam, Mr. Sir, would you, the Director of Organisational Performance, would you be able to reply to that particular question from Mr. Hutchison, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I confirm that Council did consider the disposal of the Pre-Elena Hall at its April meeting. The outcome is yet to be finalised. Council officers are having some ongoing discussions with an interested party, and announcement will be made to the community at an appropriate time. Formal replies to those that made a submission through the public land disposal process will be notified and responded to formally this week.
Thank you. Thank you. And the second question, Mr. GM?
Yeah, question 2. At the end of last year, I asked about the public release of council expressions of interest in the Northern Prison. Will council now release that information, and if so, when, and if not, why not? And if I may, Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
the response to that, I guess in short terms, is that currently there's no intent for council to release any information in relation to the Northern Prison expression of interest.
Okay. That will be the replies to those two questions to Mr. Hutchison. He now has a statement in regarding this section in the, there's no further questions, was there, Mr. Mayor?
No.
Mr. GM?
No.
He now has a statement in item 5.4, public statements received in writing, and I'll ask the GM would he deliver that statement, please.
I will. Councillors, surely if you were in the position of ratepayer only, you would think it was important to know at least where and why council, in a joint expression of interest with the Burnie City Council, would want a prison in the region. Ratepayers in the municipality would like to know more information about this council's intentions for the region, which includes where it is intended to put a northern prison. If council does not tell us, it demonstrates that transparency is not high priority and that secrecy is more important, which may lead us to assume that in other matters affecting Waratah-Wynyard residents, this is your character and culture also. Do not be afraid to wear your intentions and your decisions. Councillors, I implore you to ask the hard questions as representatives of this municipality in order for the community to be as informed as possible.
Thank you, Mr. GM. And that is Mr. Hutchison's statements. Yeah, and public statements without notice is nil. Here we go, plan. So now at this stage of the meeting, it's 6:16. And we move into the Planning Authority items, and it's my duty to advise that we're acting as a planning authority now. And public questions without notice relating to planning matters. Did we have any nil received?
No.
Yep. And public statements relating to planning matters, nil received.
No, we do have a...
Well, we do have one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, public statement, a statement relating to planning matters, and I'll ask the GM to deliver that one on behalf of the ratepayer.
So we received a statement from Barbara Davis in relation to DA 22, which is on the agenda tonight. And I'll just read that out quickly. This is addressed to myself. I'm bringing to your attention as a concerned neighbour of an earmarked planning permit, which will be attended to 18th of May 2020, 6 p.m. at your council meeting. The reporting officers have signed for the above mentioned permit, which had overlooked a large number of planning scheme requirements. As manager, I ask you to please take the time in reviewing the application in question. I then just quickly replied with this response. I understand you submitted a representation on this matter, and it has been included in the report. Specific reply to each of your points has been included. Do you have further detail as to why the proposed permit overlooks a large number of planning scheme requirements, in your words, beyond the points you have previously raised? And again, in reply, Ms. Davis states, my concern is space of wastewater effluent for the proposed system and also future effluent beds. Property without right-of-way, in my opinion, is too small for the proposed development on rural resource zoning, and my largest concern is the proposed development's proximity to our master bedroom.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. GM. That is the statement in relation to a matter on our planning tonight. And now move on to 6.3, which is DA 2020 Myla Road, 202 Myla Road. And there's a recommendation there, councillors, in relation to this planning matter. Proceed. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Am I on mute?
Whilst Councillor Fairbrother is happy to move as per the recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Fairbrother moved.
I'll second that, Mr Mayor. Deputy Mayor Dunham.
Okay. Open for discussion? Questions or discussion?
Well, speaking to the motion, if I may, I was quite happy to see that finally common sense is applied in the planning area in response to this application. Maybe I've got a pecuniary interest. My wife used to live in Myala, and she is more than conversant with the operations and the history of the former Church of England site at Myala. I too, I must confess, am very familiar with the location, the layout of the main street of Myala, and the rural resource zoning to me doesn't seem to be appropriate for that particular area, but we know that planning is not an exact science, and I understand that there are some sensitivities to and other issues which are outside the scope of whether the application complies with the planning scheme or not. But I'm satisfied that the applicant has demonstrated compliance with the scheme requirements. I recognise fully that there are issues for both representatives. I understand there's a lot of local history about complaints from residents about the farmer over the road. That comes from one resident in Myala mainly. I fully recognise that the application is surrounded by residences. This application seems to be fitting with the local built environment in the main street of Myala. The applicant, I believe, has demonstrated compliance with the scheme requirements, and I think that it's appropriate for council to approve the development as per the recommendations under the scheme.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. Any further speakers?
A question, Mr Mayor, if I may,
Yep.
perhaps to the development manager, Ashley.
Yep. Councillor Courtney.
Yeah, I just noticed that in the objection there was a specific concern about the fact that because it hadn't been used for 2 years that it reverts back to the previous use. Can I just please be given some better understanding as to whether that's, relevant for us?
Which one of would Jasmine?
Yeah,
Yes,
Jasmine or
I was, as I authored that report, if I can, through the chair, Mr Mayor,
Yes.
it's not relevant to the application what the previous use was, because it's not, if the previous use was residential and they were trying to assert that they had existing residential use rights, then it's something that would come into council's consideration. But regardless of what the previous use was, this is being assessed as a brand new residential use within an existing structure. So it's a change of whatever the previous use of that building may have been, whether that was 2 years ago or further. So the previous use of the site as community meeting and entertainment, or as a church community hall, whether that use right still exists or not, it is not relevant to the current application.
Thank you for answering that question. Anything further, Councillor Courtney?
No, that was what I needed to understand, that Mike had, clearly said it was not a change of use, and I couldn't understand where the difference was.
Yep. Any further speakers?
Councillor House, if I can ask a question, please.
Yes.
It's just in relation to 26.3.3 CII. The criteria there says that the application is not capable of utilisation in the operations of a resource development, etc., and that it doesn't interfere with existing or potential resource development. Does that clause just apply to the property that is the subject of this application, or does that need to consider the impact on, say, the properties across the road next door, that type of thing?
If I can,
Yes.
that clause essentially is referring to that the site itself can't be used and that it also can't be used in conjunction with an adjoining enterprise. So whether that's any form of cropping, which is what the use across the road is, or any type of resource development, so forestry, broiler sheds, it's quite diverse what can come under resource development. And obviously extractive industry. So it's that it can't be used in conjunction with say, an adjoining or neighbouring property, and that it's not going to interfere with other uses. So it crosses over much of the same things that are considered under 26.4.3 with the proximity of sensitive use. So there is some consideration about whether it could be used with properties that are nearby. For the most part, the road forms a bit of a barrier, and then there's the additional constraints that are specific to the site itself.
Okay, great, thank you. Also, so I'm particularly interested in the fact that this is a residential property that's obviously going to be amongst an area where they may be subject to cropping spray, late hour harvesting, all of those types of things. I think like gun control as a form of gun use as a form of animal control. Can you give me a little bit of an understanding as to what, as a planner, you consider when you say, particularly in response to Representative A's comments, that it's not anticipated, that this being a residence is not anticipated to affect the ability of the neighbours' ability to carry out their existing farming operations?
So the response to that representation, it's in the rural resource zone, the emphasis is really about protecting that agricultural use in terms of we don't consider the potential impact of an agricultural use on a residential use. It's more the opposite when you're considering a dwelling. So in that sense, in terms of the issue of complaints or things like that, there are protections in place for existing established farming operations in terms of their ability to carry out their operations. For example, if people are, carving something that's quite loud, calves have just been separated off right near to a house. If that's an established operation, then there's quite a limited scope in terms of the ability to interfere with that existing operation in terms of nuisance and things like that. The other thing that factored into the assessment was the fact that it was within an existing structure that was the same distance from that land as the residential uses on adjoining properties in that area of Myalla. So in terms of placing further interference on that agricultural land, the risk was considered minimal, considering that it wasn't increasing the proximity of residential uses to that land.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Councillor House. Any further questions, folks? If that being the case, Councillor Fairbrother, there's no one spoken against the motion. Unless you wish to clarify anything that was spoken and hasn't been, do you wish to close, or you don't need to?
Thank you, Mayor Walsh, for giving me the opportunity. I don't believe I need to. I didn't hear or didn't pick up clearly that anyone spoke against the motion, so
No,
I don't believe there is a need.
No worries, thank you. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
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 I'll have to have a vote here. Against? I didn't hear anyone against. I take it that they were all ayes. I could declare the motion carried.
My apologies, Mr Mayor, I had my microphone.
Oh, we might have been on mute.
A couple on mute.
Yeah, there was a couple on mute.
And can I please add, Mr Mayor, that we've lost Councillor Highland. He's informed me that he's having some difficulties on the West Coast with reception, so he will try and resume shortly, and
Okay.
we'll proceed with the meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Mr GM. Yeah, I guess if I say now that perhaps you were on mute and you still are on mute, you won't hear me say that you're on mute. So that's pointless. We'll move on then to 6.4 on the agenda, which is retrospective outbuilding, carport and a shed located at 8 Ward Street, Wynyard, and DA 32 2020. And there is a recommendation there, councillors. Would someone like to move on that, please?
I move, Mr Mayor. It's Deputy Mayor Dunham here.
Gotcha. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dunham. Do we have a seconder, please?
Seconded, Councillor House.
Councillor House. Okay. Any discussion, any questions? The mover wish to speak?
Mr Mayor, I think that as it's a retrospective decision, or a decision about the retrospective building of the carport and the shed, the details are fairly clear about how these buildings have been constructed. Obviously, they've been there for some time, and it is this development application that now needs to cover those buildings. And I do find it interesting that there are representatives against these buildings that have obviously been there for some time. However, I do believe that we should pass this, and I commend it to the council.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dunham. Any further speakers? Any questions?
I might ask a quick question. It's Councillor House, if I may.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't have the exact page number. I can't find it. But I did want to ask a question specifically about, I recall seeing in the item that one of the representatives had stated that they have diminished light that enters their residence as a result of the shed. I appreciate that the planner has stated that there's been the shade assessments and that there's no actual shading. What I'm just hoping to get some clarification on is whether light into the property and shading are considered to be one and the same, or how that works, because there may not necessarily be direct shading, but there may be potentially a loss of indirect light.
Okay, that question, Jasmine or Rebecca, would one of you be able to address that, please?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's Rebecca here.
Thank you.
So this particular clause at 10.4.2 P3 does actually address the reduction in sunlight into a habitable room, which is considered a living room. So how the applicant has actually responded to that is that they have provided those overshadowing diagrams as well. Now, bearing in mind, the shed could have had a shorter apex, so being only 3 metres in height reduction, it wouldn't have actually required a planning permit. But given the height of this particular roof apex, it has required the planning application. Overshadowing has also been addressed with the shade diagram in relation to the open space area, not only the living area. However, this particular adjoining property has private open space located at the directly south of their property, not in this actual location on the west of the site.
Okay, thank you for addressing that question. Councillor House?
Thank you, appreciated.
No worries. Any further questions before I put the motion? We have no speakers against at this stage. Okay, I guess there's no need for to close the debate. Councillor Deputy Mayor Dunham?
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, I'll put the motion. Well, there's a fair few of us on mute. I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Against? Carried. Yeah, I believe that at 6:33 we come out of being a planning organisation, and we move on to item on the agenda 9.1.
7.
Oh, P-Bone?
Together 7.
Oh, do we? Where are we, Mr. GM? Oh, sorry, that was only me. Here we go. Matters raised by councillors. Councillors' questions taken on notice from the previous meeting. 7.11 there, Councillor House, and the response to that. Okay. Notices, questions. Now we are 7.2. Councillors' questions received in writing nil. Councillors' questions 7.3. Councillors' questions without notice. Councillors, it's your call.
Councillor House, if I may.
Yes.
I'm sorry to be the antagonising questioner tonight. It's a bit of an ad hoc question, and it goes back to the public statement that we heard earlier from one of our ratepayers, Cody Hutchison, in regards to the Northern Prison. He made some pretty bold statements in that statement with aspersions about council's character and culture. At the time of the Northern prison matters being considered, I had been a fairly strong advocate for us releasing something to the public. I just wonder that given there's still at this point statements being made, and they're now on the public record stating that we're not interested in transparency, I guess I just wondered whether we have any changed position or increased appetite to potentially provide further information on that than we have to date.
Mr. GM.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. In response, Councillor House, Council's deliberations in relation to the prison were conducted, I guess, in the closed session of Council, and as part of the closed session, there's a public release authorisation section of the agenda in which the elected members can determine to release information to the public. At this point in time, there hasn't been, I guess, authority through that mechanism to release any information, but that can be revisited at any time. So certainly as part of the closed session, whether that be tonight, whether that be at a future meeting, Council then can reconsider anything in relation to that particular matter or other matters and determine to release information or not. So I hope that responds to your question, but you do have the ability, as I said, whether it be tonight, whether it be at future meetings, to revisit what is released, what is not, through that part of the agenda.
That's spot on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillors, any further questions without notice?
Yeah, Mayor. Just a little.
Councillor Bramish.
Thank you. I'm sorry, this late notice. I only got the phone call not long ago. There was a rubbish bin situated out at the Boat Harbour shop, and it's been removed now for a fair amount of time, and apparently it was broken, and there's none being put back there. I think I might have spoke to Shane several months ago regarding this. I'm not sure, Shane. There's a ratepayer very angry that why there's not one put there, and council this and council that. And I just, I don't know the story on it or anything like that. And I said, perhaps they're not going to put there till the highway upgrades done there. I don't know.
Yeah, this is the school shop, Gary.
Yeah.
Councillor Bramish.
Yeah, it must be opposite the shop in that. I think Councillor Fairbrother might know a little bit about it as well, I think.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any information at hand, Councillor Bramish, but happy to follow it up, take that on notice and make some inquiries and get back to you.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question to Mr. GM, a follow-up on Councillor House's request around putting it on public record about the jail decision?
Yep. Your question. Go, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm a bit confused because, as you know, I was pretty keen to put it out in the public arena as well. I thought we were bound by state direction. So is it just now our own choice to release it from closed session? It's not anything to do with the government anymore, the state government?
No, that's correct, Councillor Courtney. That it is seen to be a confidential expression of interest process, and confidentially councils discussed whether or not they wish to express an interest in that particular project, and that is one of the considerations that you'll need to make, I guess, when determining whether or not to release any information.
Yeah,
So,
okay. Yeah. That's the answer. Thanks, Mr. GM.
Yeah.
Thank you. Someone else spoke then when Councillor Courtney was it, who was it, wished to ask a question without notice? No worries. Okay, that closes the councillors' questions without notice section. Notices of motion we've had nil received. Item 9.1, we're in the section of 9, report of officers and committees. 9.1 is the COVID-19 council update, which is a recommendation there that the council noted.
I
And-
move, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor Dunham here.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Dunham, have a seconder, please.
Yeah,
Yes.
seconded, Mr. Mayor.
That was Councillor Courtney.
Was.
Yeah. Okay, any questions? Any speakers?
Mr. Mayor, can I just say it's a very extensive and comprehensive report. It just about covers absolutely everything you could think of, no stone unturned. And I congratulate the staff for putting this together.
Thank you. Any
I might make a comment too. It's Councillor House here, if I can. Look, it's along the same vein as Deputy Mayor Dunham, but COVID's obviously presented huge issues for lots of organisations, but the fact that council has responded to it and then also taken the time to, you know, kind of put together some reporting and keep us abreast of what's going on, you know, is really appreciated. So it's great to see it in the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? Carried. We'll move over to 9.2, which is the draft Integrated Council Environmental Plan 2020 to 2030 for public consultation. And there's a recommendation there, councillors.
I move.
Yeah, I'll move.
Dunham.
Yeah, was that Councillor House?
Courtney.
No, that's Councillor Courtney.
Oh, Courtney, thank you. I'm still having a little trouble with identifying your voices. Deputy Mayor Dunham, you seconded?
Yep.
Okay, any speakers? Councillor Courtney, do you wish to speak as the mover of the motion?
No, I'm just glad that this has come to fruition, that a lot of work's gone into this, and I'm really, really glad to see that council's so progressive in this area, and I'm really glad that it's going out for further public comment and consultation. I think it's a great move and it's a long overdue project.
Yep, thank you. Any further speakers?
I just had one really quick question. It's Councillor House here.
Yes.
I just wanted to check and see that whether the launch of this was going to coincide with World Environment Day, which is also early June from memory. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councillor House. So World Environment Day is the 5th of June. So it would be intended that the launch of the consultation phase would coincide with that day.
Great, thank you.
Okay, anything further, councillors? Any questions? Any speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? Carried. 9.3. The draft Cam River Reserve Master Plan for public consultation.
I move, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor Dunham here.
Yes,
And
Second, Councillor House.
Councillor House seconded. Thank you very much. Anyone wish to speak? Councillor Deputy Mayor, do you wish to open the debate?
Mr. Mayor, I don't think there's any debate, but both Councillor House and myself have attended the meetings and we are most impressed with the progress that's been made on this particular plan. It is very comprehensive. The endeavour to meet everybody's needs is it's been quite enlightening to learn that we are considering very seriously what the rest of the community would like to happen down at the Cam River Reserve. And I think that the plan is moving on to a point where it does need to go out to the public for consultation. And I'm sure we'll get lots of comments back. I'm sure that there'll be things that are not agreed with. But it really is a plan that needs to be out there for consideration, discussion, and to give us feedback on which direction we should take. So I commend it to the council for decision.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Daniel. Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Carried. 9.4 on the agenda is the waste survey. Summary of the results report. We do need a mover and a mission. Mover and a
So
second.
moved. It's Councillor House.
Councillor House, thank you.
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
It was Councillor Courtney?
Councillor-
Yep, you're right. Okay, Councillor House, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I have got a couple of questions. Well, yes, I will, to open the debate. Thank you for including this report. The details in there have been very interesting, and they will certainly provide council with an interesting position moving forward around some items that have been of particular interest to our community, being curbside garbage collection for our rural residents, and also the topic of FOGO, or organic waste, green waste collection. And I do have a couple of questions on those, if I may, Mr Mayor.
Yes, make those questions down if you wish.
Great, thank you. So in the waste survey report, I note that on page 73, it says that 60% of rural respondents would like curbside waste collection. I also note in the report that it says, you know, there'll be subsequent actions or discussions forthcoming, and there's no date given, and that's fine. But I am wondering, does the implementation of curbside waste collection for our rural residents have to align with the rates year? And if so, I assume it's not going to meet the mark for this year, so will they have to wait another whole year?
Mr GM, Daniel, would our engineer department be able to handle that? Mr Summers, did you hear that question?
Yeah, through you, Robbie, I did, Mr Mayor. Look, ideally it would, given that the current funding mechanism for curbside collection is via a separate service rate charge per property. It doesn't mean it can't be achieved out of step, but it's certainly the optimal way to do it. And given we're reasonably deep into budget preparation, there'd be logistics as well in terms of procuring a contractor truck and bins for properties on top of that. So there would be a lead time that would probably escape being prior to the setting of the current budget.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Summers. Councillor House, that satisfy your question?
I've got a couple more questions, just quickly, if I may.
Yes.
There seemed to be a reasonable amount of support for the organic waste, or FOGO, although I appreciate it still remains quite contentious, because the people who don't want it kind of really don't want it, or don't want to pay for it, or don't want to lose existing collections or have existing waste collections reduced. What are the next steps there?
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Could you take that one on, please?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Look, in the 1920 budget, or annual plan and budget was adopted, there was funding for a FOGO feasibility study, and this survey provides, some of the survey questions provided input towards that study. So there is a feasibility report prepared by MRA, Mike Ritchie and Associates, which will incorporate the survey feedback results, which is yet to come to council for further discussion and workshopping, which will give council a range of potential scenarios to consider as it may see fit to introduce FOGO or not. So there are many different ways it could be introduced, which would involve different iterations of existing bin services or changed or not. The intent is to give councils all of the options so they can pick a way forward from there.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
And the only other question that I got on page 269 of the attachment says that 43% of respondents responded other in regards to what they were prepared to pay for green waste collection. Can you give me any indication or give us any indication as to what, given it's a significant percentage, that's kind of made up of?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. I'd spoken with Dana today. MRA, who facilitated the survey, have given us the preliminary results to note tonight, but we are equally interested, given it's a significantly large chunk of respondents, with additional information that we're yet to see in terms of what their feedback is.
Thank you. Councillor House?
Happy, thank you.
Good. Any further ones from you, please? No? Anyone else with questions or to speak about the survey, the summary? Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
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 Against?
Aye.
Carried. There you go. So we move on to 9.5, which is the East Wynyard Playground disposal of the play equipment. And there's a recommendation there, councillors, listed for to consider.
I move, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor Dunniam here.
Yep.
Second, Councillor House.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any speakers? Would you wish to open the debate, Deputy Mayor Dunniam?
Yes, I can make a couple of comments. As I said, I'm not sure whether it needs debating, but certainly, obviously, several of our members of the community wanted to purchase this equipment, and I really do like the point 2 in the recommendation: donate all proceeds from the sale of the equipment to the Rotary Club of Wynyard, who incidentally established the playground in the first place. So I think it's a great move. But hopefully that those that are taking on this equipment are aware that it is at no liability for our council and that it meets the statutory safety requirements if it's going to be used by the public. So I think that it is a great move. We've managed to meet the needs of the community by doing this and supporting the Rotary Club as well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dunniam. Any further speakers or questions?
Councillor House, if I may.
Yes.
Look, I guess I wanted to commend everybody involved in this one. It happened so quickly. I know it's an unusual thing for us to do, and I appreciate that at the last meeting when we adopted this approach of an EOI to occur, we kind of got off on the wrong foot, in my humble opinion, in that we were looking to just dispose of it. And I felt really proud to be part of a team that really considered that and flipped around to considering an EOI, which I know isn't without some risk, albeit small in my opinion and as I understand it. And I think that we're suitably able to counter those risks with documentation during the handover to the successful parties. And to see now that we've diverted all of that, which still has some degree of use in it, we've diverted it from landfill and are able to put over $1,000 back into a local charity. For me, this is part of the joy of being on council and being able to do this type of thing. So I guess I want to commend council for getting it done, and I want to thank my council peers for allowing the council to do it. And I think that this is an excellent outcome that we should be really proud of.
Thank you, Councillor House. Any further speakers? Yeah, before I put the motion, I would just like to say, endorse what's been said. As the GM kept me posted on the progress of this, and prior to it coming to the agenda and the recommendation, especially two, I thought, how good is that? And I too was excited to think that we'd gone this way, and pretty proud of what the organisation arranged for this equipment. So I'd just like to mention that. In closing, I'd like to put the motion. All those in
Sorry,
favour?
Mayor Walsh, just before you do, I will ask a really quick question if I may.
Yeah.
Under policy implications, it does say here the EOI process may generate need for setting of policy position regarding the treatment for disposal of all play equipment into the future. I just wondered if we have a policy position for any other end of life equipment that's not necessarily play equipment. For example, fencing, bricks, pavers, that type of thing. And what do we do with those?
Daniel.
Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Cummins, would you like to take that one on, please?
Sure. Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. That the comment there was probably made in anticipation of a number of other, I guess, near end of life playground installations, and given the risks associated with them, for other equipment near end of life, it would probably fall under our code of procurement, where we have provisions for disposal of assets or items near the end of their life. With I don't have it at my fingertips, but it has a different level of testing the market depending upon the value of the item, whether it be scrap or holding some value. So there is policy position to guide disposal of items, playgrounds in particular, given the risks they carry, and that some are going to be in similar position in the coming years. It would suggest that perhaps a policy position could help guide. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'd just ask that, obviously I'm a layman in terms of all the technical detail in those processes and policies, but the intent of my question was around whether in future we can consider that the capacity, I'm not saying we have to, but consider the capacity to do this type of thing with any equipment that may be able to be repurposed and reused.
If I might add, through Mr. Mayor, just for a bit of confidence, in recent years we certainly have undertaken through an auction type of process disposal of surplus items from the depot in particular, so things like paving and the like, which otherwise would have landed in landfill. So.
Great, thank you.
Okay, that being done, any further speakers? Any further questions? I guess I can put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item.
I'm just note Councillor Hyland appears to be back.
You're back there, Councillor Hyland.
I am. I just snuck in, but I can't get a word in.
We'll give you a double dose then. You can have a crack shortly.
No worries, lad. I've just had Wi-Fi problems.
A lot of feedback.
Ooh.
We'll
Got your phone.
Okay. Item number.
You might need to put yours on mute, Councillor Hyland, if you don't mind.
Yep.
You there now, Kevin?
Yep, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. We now addressing 9.6 on the agenda, which is the Tulip Festival 2019 report on the Tulip Festival. We our event. I'll say this, that the next event, it would have been the 30th. This year's would be the 30th, and it's probably, so there we go. But the 29th of annual event is here, and the summary of it all. So would someone like to move on that report, please?
Yes, I'll move, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor Dunham here.
Okay.
Seconded,
I'll
Councillor
second
House.
Councillor Edwards.
Councillor House, seconded. And I'll ask if anyone would like to speak or ask questions.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just speak to the Tulip Festival. It's been a phenomenal event put together by the community to begin with, and then taken over by the council, and it's just grown enormously. It's hugely successful. We've been very lucky with the weather almost every year since I can remember being engaged on the committee, but it is a fantastic event. And you hear nothing but good reports about the food, about the activities, about the way it's laid out. And even the stall holders are happy with the way it's run. And I think that we should be very proud as a smaller town on the northwest coast that we do something so well. So I think that we can pat ourselves on the back, because I think we lead the way in having an event for the community that everyone can enjoy. It's for everybody, and I think we do it very, very well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Any further speakers?
Yeah, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Highland.
Yeah, just probably not one for singling people out, but I think one person should deserve a little bit of a mention, and that's Chantel French, particularly in her efforts with the sponsorship year in, year out. And they certainly stitched up a really good deal this year. I think it was for 3 years, which obviously helps the financial situation. So, and obviously there's a lot of other people that really need a pat on the back as well. But I think Chantel stands out and doesn't miss a stride and doesn't get flustered and does it quite easily. So well done to Chantel.
Thank you, Councillor Highland. Any further speakers? No questions?
Just briefly,
Councillor House. Councillor Bramish, sorry.
just briefly, Mr Mayor, look, fingers crossed and legs crossed that can go ahead full swing.
Yeah, same here. That's our worry, isn't it?
Yes.
Was Councillor Edwards wish to speak there, I think, did you? No.
Councillor House was going to ask a question.
Oh, right. Go
I
for
should
it.
have known it would be me, Mayor Walsh.
Yeah, you're good though. Go for it. You're allowed to ask questions.
Under risk implications, the decision on the 2020 Tulip Festival will be made by 31st of July. Just wondering who is going to be making that decision and who the consulted parties will be.
I guess it would be. So, sorry, the Mr. GM, I leave it with you.
And I might start, and Tracy, I'm sure we'll add some detail in a second. However, we felt that 31st of July would allow enough time to proceed with the event if need be. Whilst there are some concerns about the ability to hold the event this year, we didn't want to make decisions too early. So clearly we'll take advice from the government, we'll take advice from health authorities, we'll take advice from Events Tasmania, and staff will engage with conversations with yourselves as councillors to make that final decision. And it may be that the event may not be able to be held in its existing format, but there may be some other options that can be considered. So that's what we'll be taking into account. So, Tracy, I don't know if you have anything further to add to that.
Not really. Through you, Mr Mayor, as Shane said, we'll be guided by what the advice is in terms of crowd size and what we can do. But we're also open to some innovation, and if there's a way that we can deliver something, then I think we'd try to deliver something.
Yeah. Thanks, Mrs. Bradley. That answer your question, Councillor House?
Beautifully, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Okay, we'll move on then. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? Carried. Item 9.7 on the agenda, the Customer Service Charter, that the Council adopt the Customer Service Charter with immediate effect. And you need a mover and a seconder, and I'll be away.
So move, Mr Mayor. Deputy Mayor Dunn here.
Sorry, I'll second. I was on mute. I'm sorry.
Councillor Courtney. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. Any speakers?
No, Mr Mayor, just simply to say that the Customer Service Charter is absolutely paramount, so that as a council we do deliver and meet the needs of our residents and our ratepayers at all times, so that we meet them appropriately at all times, is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. Any further speakers, councillors?
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, councillor.
I've got a couple. I'm interested to know how many other councillors compared the current proposed customer charter to the old one, or the one that's in current effect, because the new customer charter that we're looking to adopt tonight includes changes which extend council's guaranteed call return time out from 2 days to 10 days and extends council's written response time from 2 days, sorry, from 5 days to 10 days. Appreciating that that's not the aim to take 10 days, but it is the threshold that has been extended out from 2 and 5 to 10 days. And I was wondering if we could get some comment on the rationale behind that, please.
Who do we direct that question to, Mr. GM?
Tracy.
Oh, Mrs. Bradley, could you address that question, please?
Thank you, Robbie. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that question, Ali. When looking at the customer service charter, we spoke to different parts of council to look at what was achievable and what would be a threshold, rather than continuing to not meet a threshold, to try to start somewhere where we can put in place processes that make sure that we are achieving what we want to achieve. So we were just not meeting what the threshold was previously, and getting the information back and being able to respond back. What we'll be providing is more detail within 10 days, rather than just a response saying we've received your request. So the days are different, but we're hoping that the information that we can provide is more than just an acknowledgement of receiving a request.
Okay, thank you for that, Tracy. Appreciated. The other part that I wanted to ask about was that in the old, or the current, sorry, customer charter, we have a section which is called measuring performance, which refers to, I guess, council actually measuring and being accountable for their performance in the customer charter. That section's omitted from the current. Can you provide any comment around that, please?
I'm not sure why. I'll take that on notice. However, we do measure more now than we did previously. So we set some KPIs around meeting customer requests, how quickly we can do that. And so we've put things in place to do that, but I'm not sure why the measuring doesn't still appear in the charter. I'll certainly get you a better response and put into the next agenda.
Thank you for that. On that basis, I think I'm going to speak against the motion, not because I was unhappy with the quality of Tracy's answers, but because I guess my concerns haven't been suitably allayed. I appreciate that weren't meeting existing customer charter, and that it is important that we're not setting ourselves up to fail. But I, in all good conscience, can't adopt a document which strives for best practice and sees us double and beyond the turnaround time we have. I would prefer and be more comfortable with seeing a document that represents, if our focus is around quality as opposed to timeliness. I think that that's been overlooked in the document. I didn't get a sense that that's what we were trading on. And I think in any case, what we will see here is potentially worst case scenario, if we lose the great exec and the great staff that we have, or we revert to a real baseline, for whatever reason, we have a customer charter that says you can get a response from a phone call in 10 days. And I don't think that our community is going to think that that's acceptable. And if I get bailed up down the street and asked why I endorsed that happening, it goes against everything that I believe in. I would prefer to see us, I still don't, after all this time, and I've asked several questions about the customer charter during my time on council, I still don't understand what the barriers are to us improving some of the disconnects that we might have internally. I understand that there's systems that don't connect and that type of thing, and I'm not at all suggesting that it's person-based. I do believe that we've got some genuine hurdles to overcome, but I would prefer to see us put some effort into that rather than providing ourselves a much greater leeway to have worst case scenario occurring with a 10-day turnaround time for an email or a phone call. So for those reasons, I don't think that this one is palatable, and I'm not going to be supporting the motion.
Okay. Any further questions, councillors or speakers, in relation to this item?
Yeah, Mayor Walsh, Councillor Fairbrother.
Yeah, Councillor Fairbrother.
Can I move a procedural motion that this matter be deferred to a face-to-face workshop whenever that may occur, please?
Move to procedural motion, Councillor Fairbrother.
If I might add some comment to that in support of the amendment, Mayor, is that the Director indicated, the Director Tracy indicated, asked the question, what do we want to achieve with this policy? I'm with Councillor House in that I don't think that we should agree to a degree of mediocrity to expand out the date. I think we should be setting a standard as councillors as to what, as representatives of the community, we expect as the standard in terms of responding to community concerns that's raised. And I think that it'd be good for us to sit around the table, discuss what our expectations are, and then move forward after that. So I think it'd be good for us to have the face-to-face discussion and determine what it is that we want to achieve by having a customer service charter, and does the deviation that the antagonising question, or the council that asked the antagonising questions has alerted us to, the fact that it's gone out from 2 days to 10 days, is that satisfactory to us? Because I agree with her. To me, it's not satisfactory.
Councillor Fairbrother,
have the discussion with the fellow councillors about whether they think it is or not.
Councillor Fairbrother, I just got to interject there a little bit in relation to the meeting procedures, and it goes like this: a procedural motion, no debates to be allowed, and the procedural motion is to be put to the vote. Look.
Thank you. Thank you. I think they got the message.
Yeah, you had plenty of time, didn't you? Yeah. So now we need a seconder for the procedural motion, which is
Seconded, Councillor House.
Councillor House. Okay, we'll now put the motion. That this of the procedural motion put by Councillor Fairbrother. I'll take a vote on that. Hang on. For and against. Okay, those in favour of the procedural motion, please indicate.
Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'll take those. Less writing, I guess. If I ask those against, would you like to say indicate against? Okay, it's unanimous that the procedural motion is carried. Okay, we'll move on to item 9.8, which is the quarterly statistics. Yeah, and that's the report.
Yeah, you there, Mr. Mayor?
Beg your pardon, Councillor Hyland?
Oh, yeah, I missed the last call on that vote. I was still muted, or.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, and I was voting against the procedural motion. If you
Okay, so it wasn't unanimous. I'll just record that. There was a division, and I'll note that. Yep. Against was Councillor Hyland, and everyone else was for it. Okay, so I'll put a circle around that. Thank you. Now, you must have missed the next piece, the quarterly statistics, which is in the hands of the Executive Officer of Governance and Performance. And the recommendation there is that we note the quarterly statistics. And we have a mover and a seconder, please.
So moved.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor House.
Councillor House and Councillor Courtney. Yeah, House and Courtney. Okay. Any speakers or mainly questions, I guess, in relation to the report, the statistics? Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? Motion's carried. Item 9.9 on the agenda. budget amendment for the flood mitigation works, and there's a recommendation there in the description of what is in.
So moved, Mr Mayor. Deputy Mayor Dunniam here.
We have a seconder, please.
Second, Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, Councillor Edwards, thank you. Any questions or clarification on anything there in the recommendation?
Could I make a comment, please, Mr Mayor? Deputy Mayor Dunniam here.
Yes, go for it.
When I was reading this, I did want to know what the impact is on our bottom line. We have been informed on page 100 very clearly what the impact will be on our bottom line, and I thank that council officer for providing that information, because it's always a worry when we have to make budget amendments, but these are very well justified, and I do commend it to the council.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dunniam. Any further speakers or questions?
I've got a question, if I may, Mayor.
Yeah, Councillor Bramage.
Is the opportunity there, this is probably directed to the General Manager, Mr Mayor, is the opportunity there for us to get some funding shortly to get some of these jobs out of the way?
Mr GM.
Through Mr Mayor, the intent with this particular project, or these three projects as listed there before you, Councillor Bramage, is for us to try and obtain interest-free loans from the government to bring them forward. Yep. So this particular recommendation will allow us to get on with the design and planning components of the work, with the view then that when the funding comes through, we can commence work on them far sooner than perhaps what we had anticipated. So we were potentially doing these in a future year, but by trying to obtain the interest-free loans, that will bring them forward. So therefore, we need to move quickly on the design and planning, and that's why we've got this motion before us. So currently, we don't have any intent to apply for any other projects. We've got a fairly large capital budget, I guess, in capital works planned over the next 3 years. We haven't requested any further funding with the exception of these three projects.
Yep, thank you. One more question, if I may, Mayor.
Yeah, go for it.
With this, these three projects, should we be knocking something out of the budget, what we've already allocated or flagged, to keep our bottom line better, or not?
Through Mr Mayor, these projects will be capital budget items, so they'll have an impact on our cash, obviously, but won't affect our operating position. So our surplus or deficit will only be impacted once the works are complete and we have then depreciation and maintenance expenses to come on board. So I understand what you're saying, Councillor Bramage, but we believe we've got capacity to cover these within the capital program, and the only impact be as those listed in the financial implications area, which is a decrease in our cash on hand. Yep. And unless Sam or Daniel has anything to add, I guess that's we think we can cover it. Yeah.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll just add that the planned borrowing for these particular projects are under the state government's stimulus borrowing scheme, so they'll be interest-free for the first 3 years, and the longer term impact of these projects, they will make way for some residential developments, so there's likely to be some additional rate revenue that will offset any potential cost, borrowing cost after that 3-year period. So
thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Searle. There you go, Councillor Bramage.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. Any further questions regarding this recommendation? Any speakers to the motion? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
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 Against?
Aye.
No one against? Carried unanimously. Okay. 9.10, the financial report for the period ended the 30th of April. There is council notes, the financial report, including the forecast estimates. I can't do much unless I get a mover and a seconder.
Yeah, I'll move, Mr.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Councillor Hyland.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Okay, anyone wish to speak in regarding to this report? No speakers. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
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 Against? Carried. 9.11 is the senior management report. That the council note their monthly senior management report. Detailed there. Do we have-
So move, Mr Mayor. Deputy Mayor Duniam.
Okay.
I'll second Councillor Edwards.
Councillor Edwards, thank you. There must be some questions. There must be happy. Any speakers, any questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, we must be getting to the 15, we're getting there. Okay. What's next, Mr GM?
Item 10, items to be considered in closed.
Yeah,
Page 138.
yeah, gotcha, 29, 30, 138. Okay, that the council resolves by an absolute majority the matters listed below be considered in the closed meeting. Would someone like to move that, please?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
That was
Yeah, second that, yeah.
Councillor Courtney and seconded Councillor Bramish. And I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
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 Carried. Against? Okay, 11, closure of the meeting to the public. So now that would be if we were, and the time is 7:20.